Reading. Now in the order of third reading is House Bill 4664. Mr. President, or Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
House Bill 4664, an act concerning regulation. Third reading of the bill.
Senator Villanueva to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last year, we saw the Supreme Court decision that had the direct impact on rights in our country. This bill that we've been working on has been a joint effort by a lot of different stakeholders, legislators, people, as a direct response to the Dobbs decision. Because the current Supreme Court made it very clear that they are chipping away our rights to bodily autonomy, privacy, and liberty to form families. Right now, there are states across the country that are trying to criminalize parents for seeking medical care for their children, seeking to criminalize pregnant people from being able to make decisions about their bodies, states that are criminalizing people looking for help. This particular bill does the following. It protects access to assisted reproductive technology by making it a fundamental right pursuant to the Reproductive Health Act. It establishes a 2-year statute of limitations for claims under the Reproductive Health Act. It establishes a counterclaim for individuals who have a judgment entered against them in another state for reproductive health care that is legal in this state. It shields individuals in Illinois from foreign subpoenas, summonses, extradition, and foreign judgments related to lawful reproductive or gender-affirming care in Illinois, and requires courts in Illinois to apply Illinois law in cases related to such lawful health care activity. It amends the Parentage Act to 1, allow for the disposition of embryos pursuant to an agreement, 2, to allow an intended parent's legal authorization designee to certify parentage in the event the intended parent dies during pregnancy, and 3, allows out-of-state physicians to certify the genetic makeup of embryos. It prevents insurers from charging higher out-of-pocket costs for services under certain insurance plans when patients are forced to seek out-of-network provider care due to an in-network provider care, raising moral objections under the Healthcare Right of Conscience Act. It requires that abortion care coverage must include medication abortion with or without proof of pregnancy. It requires limited healthcare service organizations, as well as schools, municipalities, and counties that offer health insurance plans to provide coverage for contraceptives, and if they offer pregnancy-related benefits, abortion. Protects the Illinois licenses of healthcare providers who are penalized for providing care that is illegal in another state but legal in Illinois. It establishes expedited temporary licenses for out-of-state healthcare professionals seeking to provide healthcare in Illinois and permits these licensees to offer telehealth care. It clarifies that advanced practice registered nurses and physician's assistants can perform abortions consistent with their training and within their scope of practice. It requires the Department of Public Health to partner with nonprofit organizations to administer grants to provide abortion training. Training program sites should prioritize underserved areas and transportation hubs. It permits the Department of Public Health to issue standing orders for hormonal contraceptives. It expands birthing centers' authority to include reproductive health care. It removes references to the Parental Notice of Abortion Act in a few statutes as cleanup language. It amends the Wrongful Death Act to prohibit a person from asserting a claim against any licensed healthcare professional, medical facility, or pregnant person for assisting in a lawful abortion. It changes the IDPH abortion statistics reporting requirements to quarterly rather than monthly to protect patient anonymity. It adds clinical protections for physicians, nurses, and physician's assistants by preventing a healthcare institution from taking an adverse action against them based on a disciplinary action based on healthcare that is lawful in Illinois but unlawful elsewhere. It prevents a professional liability insurer from denying or revoking coverage or increasing rates for coverage of service in Illinois if it is solely because the service provided is unlawful in another state. It clarifies that the Criminal Identification Act does not require a physician or nurse to report lawful healthcare activity that is a violation of other states' law. And it requires no cost coverage for abortifacients, hormone therapy, and PEP and PrEP for health insurance plans issued in Illinois after January 1st of 2024. This bill provides protections to patients, families, and providers, and it also ensures meaningful access to health care. I do believe this bill will save lives, and I am open to questions.
Is there any discussion? Senator Bailey.
To the bill, please.
To the bill.
Had an interesting last few hours celebrating life, celebrating children. I have absolutely no idea how we move into something like this after that. I have no words for it other than pure evil. I'd like to share a reading from you out of Psalm 139. I'd like to just share verses 13, 14, 15, and 16, and I would encourage anyone to look up and read the remainder of that chapter, Psalm 139, starting with verse 13. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, and as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. This is wrong. God help us.
Further discussion. Senator Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go straight to the bill.
To the bill.
Thank you. So there have been 2 more amendments filed. I'm not sure exactly when. I believe those 2 amendments were filed after we caucused today. So I'm not totally clear on every single thing that's been added in, but I am clear on just a couple of items that I want to throw in for our consideration, and one has to do with wrongful death. So this is what I understand to be in this bill, and that is that a doctor performing the death of a baby cannot be held responsible for wrongful death, but a doctor performing a live birth can be. There are components in this about expedited licensing, which I hope that one of my other colleagues is going to talk about. There are components of this bill that allows for someone who is underage to go and get prescription drugs straight from the pharmacist without a prescription. There are changes in this to diminish the Healthcare Right of Conscience Act. The bill also prohibits subpoena or FOIA of information on how many abortions are performed at a facility. So as legislators, we're tasked with keeping an eye on what happens with Medicaid money. However, if I disagree with how many abortions that are going to be reimbursed for at that facility, I believe that I will not even be able to get that information so that we would be able to determine whether or not they're being reimbursed for those actual acts. When I left here back in April and we had done the Parental Notification Act, I went home and people said, what else could be granted in these death of babies? What else could be added? And I told them nothing. They've taken everything they could possibly take. And then we come back here, and now we're going to say that there are doctors in other states who have performed illegal acts I understand that you may not agree with whether or not it should have been illegal in another state, but the fact is that that is a doctor who's performing an act in another state, and we're going to ask them to come to Illinois, and in fact, we're going to expedite their licenses in order to do that. But we can't even get a nurse compact bill called in here. Well, we're trying to get nurses and doctors. We're going to bring nurses and doctors here who violated another state's laws and then have them come to Illinois. So basically, this is my read on this. The bill's main purpose is to invite state law-breaking medical providers to operate on our women and girls, even though we say, individuals say, that this is about the safety of women. So we're going to invite lawbreakers here, but to the medical providers who operate on women and girls who have outstanding records and impeccable medical credentials and no criminal records, but rather just the one that they broke in that state, I don't get it. So we're going to invite lawbreakers to come to Illinois and perform abortions and expedite their licenses. And then once again, what do we have in Illinois right now that we're expanding on? Abortion at any time of a pregnancy, for any reason, sometimes taxpayer funded, and with no notification to parents at all. That's what we have, and now we're adding to that. I join the previous speaker who says, God help us.
Is there further discussion? Leader McConkey. Leader Severson.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question of the sponsor.
Indicates she will yield.
Thank you. Senator, a couple questions on the, trying to get an understanding on the temporary health license. So under this, it says that you have a physician coming into a physician or an advanced practice nurse or a physician's assistant will have an expedited license. What's involved in that expedited license that's different from a regular license?
Senator Villanueva.
Thank you, Senator. These are people who are already licensed in other states and have to attest to those credentials. The thing that we're getting at in terms of expedition is just it's gonna prioritize them.
Senator Severson.
Is there anything different in their application process in this temporary application that's different than a permanent application?
Senator Villanueva.
Just the expedited process.
Senator Severson.
Okay, then I guess I'm not sure why we would call it a temporary license, why we wouldn't just call it an expedited permanent license. So, so the license is the same. How does the department know if a person coming in is, I guess, a reproductive doctor versus any other surgeon or doctor coming in from another state?
Senator Villanueva.
They'd have to prove their credentials, Senator.
Senator Severson.
So this, in fact, because I thought in committee we talked about that it would be all physicians. So we're saying under this that a physician that is coming in to do abortions will be expedited over a heart surgeon or a pediatric surgeon coming in from another state?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, it's all healthcare professionals licensed in other states in order to address the capacity issue. But if you want to talk about the other issue, we can talk about that offline and talk about maybe doing something together.
Senator Severson.
No, happy to do that because we need to speed those up. But I guess I'm still a little confused. So is it all physician and nurse practitioner licensed that are coming in from other states regardless of what their role is, or is it just those that are coming in for reproductive services? And how do they know when they're applying for temporary license? Because normally, when you apply for license, you don't put down that you're coming in for to perform abortions. You're coming in, you're just applying for your physician's license.
Senator Villanueva?
Senator, it's healthcare professionals that are already licensed in other states in order to basically create some capacity, because we do have capacity issues in the state of Illinois.
Senator Severson?
So I guess my question is, a doctor coming in from another state, regardless of what their purpose is, if they're coming in for abortions, if they're coming in for cardiac, if they're coming in for pediatric, are we picking which ones get expedited, or are we taking any physician that's coming in from another state and we're expediting those physician licenses? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to get a clarity on.
Senator Villanueva?
Senator, it's anyone that applies for the temporary license gets that expedited process.
Senator Severson?
Okay, so that would be then any, which is important because there's a lot of hospitals that are waiting for months to get their physicians approved, so this will be very obviously helpful. So this, under this language, it'll be any physician, nurse practitioner, or advanced practice nurse that's coming in from another state that is requesting a expedited, actually permanent license. So this would apply to any one of those, not any one particular specialty. Is that right?
Senator Villanueva?
It is for those people that are applying for this particular temporary license that are already licensed in another state and have that requisite training.
Senator Severson?
Okay, now I'm really confused. Help me understand. A physician coming in from another state, are we picking which specialty gets expedited, or are we picking, or are we helping any physician that's coming in seeking a license?
Senator Villanueva?
I'm trying to help you here, Senator. The simple answer is no. It's any of them.
Senator Severson?
Thank you. Okay, so any physician coming in, if they're coming in from another state and they're licensed in another state and they're seeking a license in Illinois, any physician would fall under this expedited procedure, whether it's like say, doctor, nurse practitioner, or APN. Is that correct then?
Senator Villanueva?
Senator, I think I've answered the question several times, but I'm glad to continue to answer it. They have to apply for it.
Senator Severson?
I understand that they are applying. That's why they're coming from another state. They're applying. I'm just trying to clarify that any physician coming in from another state will be expedited through this process. That's just not a specialty physician. Any physician coming from another state gets the expedited license, correct?
Senator Villanueva?
Senator, as long as they apply through this particular provision, yes. Again, there's still the regular application process. I hope that answers your question.
Senator Severson?
Unfortunately, now I add something more. Applies for this position. I'm not sure what that means. What, under this provision, what provision?
Senator Villanueva?
Sorry, Senator, I was talking about the provision. Sorry. I think it's the microphones might get a little bit muffled, but it's what we're talking about in the bill.
Senator Severson?
So the provision in the bill, I'm not sure what is the provision in the bill that the doctor then is taking advantage of?
Senator Villanueva.
Sorry. So a doctor that is licensed in another state can apply for this temporary license through what we're talking about in this bill and go through that process, or, again, if they choose to, can apply through a regular process.
Senator Severson.
Okay, so, and again, forgive me if I'm not, I just want to make sure I understand. So this is not limiting to one specialty or one area of medical practice. Any medical physician licensed in another state coming into Illinois can apply through this expedited process and qualify for that. It's not for any one particular specialty. Is that?
Senator Villanueva.
You are correct, Senator.
Senator Severson.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that, and I'm glad that we're able to help expedite those processes, because I know healthcare providers are struggling to try to get that. I'm just not sure now if the department has the manpower or the ability to do this, but hopefully we can work with them to get the staffing they need to expedite those. So thank you for your indulgence and helping me answer those questions.
Is there further discussion? Leader McConkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question to the sponsor.
She indicates she will yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, I'd like to ask about a provision that's in this bill. I'm referring particularly to page 253, in which it says that the governor of the state shall not surrender such a person if the charge is based on conduct that involves seeking, providing, receiving, assisting in seeking, providing, or receiving, providing material support for, or traveling to obtain lawful health care as defined. Is this comport, in your understanding, with the U.S. Constitution's requirements of the state?
Senator Villanueva.
Yes, Leader. It's to kind of explain it. This is based on conduct that is illegal in another state, but is legal in this state.
Leader McConkey.
So the extradition clause in the U.S. Constitution, which is Article 4, Section 2, requires that a person charged with any crime be delivered to the state having jurisdiction of the crime that's done. In fact, there was Supreme Court precedent on this back from 1987 in a case called Puerto Rico versus Branstad, in which the Supreme Court ruled that in this case where Puerto Rico was trying to obtain somebody and Iowa was denying the extradition request, that the Supreme Court ruled that extradition in the United States between states is merely an administrative procedure that cannot be stopped.
Senator Villanueva.
Leader, what we're talking about is basically extradition, in the situation of a person, an individual who comes from another state that, one second, let me make sure I got my words correct. Where the conduct does not occur in the state requesting the extradition. This is the situation that we're talking about.
Leader McConkey.
So you're saying that I think you were going to go on to explain. So let me just ask, are you saying that if state A is requesting extradition from state B for conduct that happened in state C, that's what's being blocked here?
Senator Villanueva.
To answer your question, B or C.
Leader McConkey.
Okay, so if in state A, so in Iowa, a crime is committed, that person comes here, even though that process is legal here and it's illegal in Iowa, we would extradite in that circumstance?
Senator Villanueva.
So, Leader, we've outlined what we're talking about in the bill. Again, I don't know exactly what crime you're talking about being committed, but what we're trying to get at here is if people are coming to the state of Illinois in order to seek an abortion, it is legal in the state of Illinois. And what we're doing with this bill, where we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people, is to make sure that people are able to come to Illinois and seek the support that they need, because it's necessary for some folks, and not feel like they're going to be prosecuted or persecuted in their state of origin. That's what we're getting at. I hope that answers your question.
Leader McConkey.
To the bill.
To the bill.
So I will just state there's things on like page 247 about unenforceable foreign subpoenas, along with this, which I believe in the manner in which it's drafted would be unconstitutional under current Supreme Court precedent. I don't believe that the manner in which this is done is constitutional, and I do believe that we're going to run into some issues as we proceed with this. So given that, as well as all the other issues in there, I would request a no vote. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Anderson.
Question to the sponsor, Mr. President.
Indicates you will yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, so as Senator Bryant pointed out earlier, in the previous abortion bill that this is kind of going along with, people can basically get an abortion at any time for any reason. So my question is, in this bill, the wrongful death section, it says that a fertilized egg, embryo, fetus does not have independent rights under the Wrongful Death Act. So could you explain to me at what magical point somebody does have independent rights?
Senator Villanueva.
When they're born, Senator.
I'm sorry, Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so a 9-month-old child crowning does not have independent rights, but 6 inches later it does, correct?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, what you're describing is something very different than what we're trying to get at with this bill.
Senator Anderson.
No. In the bill, it talks about the Wrongful Death Act, and it does not have independent rights. I'm trying to get at when it has independent rights, and what you just described, Senator, is when it's born. To my question is if it is crowning 6 inches later, then it has independent rights. I'm just trying to ask you if that is correct.
Senator Villanueva.
When it's born, it has independent rights, Senator.
Senator Anderson.
Okay, so independent rights boil down to in here location. Is that fair?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, the RHA made it clear in a bill that we passed a few years ago. I said the RHA made it clear when we passed it a couple of years ago. And again, I think I've answered your question a couple times now.
Senator Anderson.
To the bill.
To the bill.
Thank you for answering my question, Senator. So we pointed out here that literally 6 inches of the birth canal dictate independent rights in life. Take a deep breath and think about that for a moment. 6 inches. Location. It's been said a couple times before, God help us. I mean, really, this is how we are determining independent rights now? Is 6 inches, born or not? A child crowning, it's okay to shove a forceps in their neck and kill them, but 5 seconds later, it's not? Come on. This is like the Twilight Zone. We sit here and have the audacity to say this is about reproductive rights. It's nonsense. God help us is right.
Further discussion, Senator Sally Turner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the sponsor, please.
Indicates she will yield.
I just had a question, and I believe it's on page 209, but since it's been amended, I think that's the page it's on. It says, reports shall not be admissible as evidence or discoverable in any action of any kind in any court or before any tribunal, board, agency, or person. I was just curious, what's the reasoning for that statement?
Senator Villanueva.
Can you clarify, Senator, is this the IDPH reporting that you're talking about?
Senator Turner.
Correct.
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, we want to protect abortion patients that are being persecuted and prosecuted in other states. That's why.
Senator Turner.
Thank you for that answer. Just to follow that up, so if there would happen to be a civil court action involving like a malpractice case, would that prevent the attorney's request for discovery as to their lawsuit?
Senator Villanueva.
No, Senator, we're not protecting unlawful health care. We are protecting lawful health care.
Senator Turner.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much for your answers.
State Journal Register seeks leave of the body to record audio and video and take still photographs. Seeing no objection, leave is granted. Further discussion, Senator Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question of the sponsor.
Indicates you will yield.
Would this amendment provide protection against, I'm sorry, this is a question to establish legislative intent. Would this amendment provide protection against any out-of-state court judgment seeking to remove minors from their parents based on the parents allowing their children to receive gender-affirming health care that has been outlawed in another state?
Senator Villanueva.
Yes, Senator.
Senator Simmons.
And then my follow-up question is, would this amendment provide protections for any out-of-state arrest warrant for someone based on violating another state's law against receiving gender-affirming care?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, we would not extradite for conduct that occurred in a state where it is lawful, like ours is about to be, to another state.
Senator Simmons. Further discussion, Senator Feigenholz.
Thank you, Mr. President. For purposes of legislative intent for House Bill 4664, Senator, is the Lawful Health Care Activity Act intended to protect individuals who are seeking, providing, or receiving material support for or traveling to obtain lawful gender-affirming care?
Senator Villanueva.
Yes, Senator.
Senator Feigenholz.
Will the protections for duly licensed healthcare professionals protect those who are providing lawful gender-affirming care?
Senator Villanueva.
Yes, Senator.
Senator Feigenholz.
Does this legislation make any changes to the current law regarding parental rights to consent or not for a child receiving surgery or other kind of health care?
Senator Villanueva.
No, Senator.
Senator Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would have some questions of the sponsor, if she will yield, please.
She indicates she will yield.
Senator Villanueva, continuing on with the matter of the expedited licensing that we had discussed, what I'm wondering is, in the end of this process, will physicians in Illinois who are awaiting their licenses for other issues, other places of medicine that are practicing in Illinois, will they be moved back to the line, and the licenses of those that want to come from other states to perform abortions, will their licenses be expedited in front of those physicians here in Illinois awaiting licensing?
Senator Villanueva.
That is not our intent, Senator.
Senator Tracy.
But I did think I heard you say something about prioritization.
Senator Villanueva.
Apologies if I said priority, but it should be expedite.
Senator Tracy.
Okay, and another question I had is, in the area where insurance is required to fund abortion services and abortion drugs, it says that there's no proof of pregnancy required?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, that's actually consistent with current practice of administrators of the abortion pill.
Senator Tracy.
I'm sorry, I don't even understand that. Current practice of what?
Senator Villanueva.
So when providers are providing, again, the abortion pill, it is consistent with practice that there doesn't need to be a proof of pregnancy.
Senator Tracy.
I personally, I find that kind of interesting, since most of us have state insurance, and if I need knee surgery, I have to provide proof that I need it. And is this kind of out of the normal procedure, that if I don't really need knee surgery, then I can still get medications to treat it, and that's paid through for my insurance?
Senator Villanueva.
So, Senator, I think I'm going to try to put it in a way where it might be a little bit easier to understand in this process. I suffer from allergies. I get sinus infections about 2 times a year. My healthcare provider and I have that relationship where they kind of already know what's going to happen, and they're like, hey, we know what's going to happen in the fall, we know what's going to happen in the spring when you open up the windows and when you close down the windows. So we're going to make sure that you get this prescription ahead of time, because you're probably going to need it as soon as you close the windows for the fall and for the winter, and as soon as you open up the windows for the spring and the summer. So that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Senator Tracy.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting analysis between pregnancy and allergies that happen twice a year. A person usually doesn't get pregnant that often, but anyway, let me get back to one other question. Going back to the licensing, do you foresee, or are there plans in place for the Department of Professional Regulations to hire additional personnel to accommodate all of these licensing requests to be expedited?
Senator Villanueva.
Senator, I think IDFPR believes that they have the capacity, but again, I think I've told other legislators, I'm more than happy to be able to continue to have conversations with ideas for new bills. We have a new General Assembly starting tomorrow, so we can always continue to have conversations.
Senator Tracy.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the bill.
To the bill.
Well, first of all, anybody that's dealt with professional regulations knows they're understaffed, highly understaffed. You can wait months waiting for a nursing's license. Your hospital will call you desperately needing a physician to be licensed, who's come here to practice medicine in a hospital in a rural area, for instance, and they can't get their license, they can't work, the patients can't be seen, and the physician can't be paid. It's a horrible situation that we in our offices are facing every day. So it's disingenuine to think that professional regulations has the capacity right now to address expedited licensing. Let's certainly hope those physicians that I just described that are waiting to help our Illinois citizens here in Illinois on a multitude of illnesses, cancer, brain tumors, you name it, that they are not put to the back of the line. I think it's said it best that it's never enough in this chamber right now to go as far as we can once we've opened a window and start doing things that are highly unpopular in much of the state, are highly immoral, viewed as immoral in many parts of this state. And as Senator Anderson said, 6 inches, this much, between when you have legal rights under this bill or when you don't. We all know that fetus, whether born or unborn, still has rights criminally in this state. God help us if we remove that stipulation, but it's coming, I suspect. So with that, I will close my remarks and urge a no vote for a very poor piece of legislation.
Further discussion, Senator Villanueva to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say that I don't measure my life in inches, maybe in minutes and in days and in years. I want to make a couple of things very, very clear. Number one, abortion is legal in the state of Illinois. We made this so because we saw the writings on the wall several years ago of what was going to happen and what could potentially happen in this country. I am the youngest female senator in the state of Illinois. I am of childbearing years. I have not started my family yet, but I come from a very large Mexican immigrant family. I come from an incredible mother who was also my hero, who was an immigrant herself, who was a staunch Catholic, and was probably one of the biggest reproductive rights champions that you will ever see. Because she understood the implications of what that meant, not just for herself, but for me, my family, my brothers, my sister, and for so many other people in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in our country. We want to talk about constitutionality in this country and in the state of Illinois. Let's talk about it. We want to talk about morality. Let's talk about it. But don't use me and what I represent as a scapegoat for your morality, because there's too many brown babies in this country, because there's too many immigrants coming to this country. Don't use that as a way to say that you're morally superior to what we're talking about here, because God is helping us. The same God that's looking at you is also looking at me. And guess what? It's the same God that's giving me the inspiration in order to be able to do this. So we can disagree on a lot of different things, but don't sit here and tell me that you have the moral high ground on your soapboxes over mine. You don't get to decide what happens to my body. You don't get to decide what happens to the bodies of a lot of different people from other states that are coming to this state seeking refuge. I am an immigrant rights champion. I have worked to protect immigrants and refugees. I worked as an organizer on marriage equality. I have worked on endless amount of issues since I was 14 years old to ensure that people that don't have voices have one in me. Don't give me morality. Don't give me superiority. I don't need that. Because at the end of the day, we are protecting people. I don't measure my life in inches. Because you know what the Maker is going to decide of me when I go to those pearly gates. What did I do for humanity? I know what I did for humanity. I know what I did for people. And I know what I will continue to do. I want to thank Mary Hanahan, our legislative staffer who worked endless hours on this legislation. I want to thank the advocates who have supported this bill and worked with us even into the late nights to try to get this language. I want to thank the constituents, because every time you talk about people telling you in your districts, let me tell you how often the conversation of reproductive rights and protecting trans youth was talked about in my district. Almost every single door that I knocked on, that was the conversation. You don't get to tell me that my constituents are any less important than yours. I end with this. We are protecting patients, providers, and families here. Illinois is a refuge for people, and I will spend every last breath in my body ensuring that those protections exist for anybody that is coming here seeking in order to live their lives openly and freely and honestly. I ask for an aye vote.
Just remind everyone to make sure their computers are up and ready. Okay. The question is, shall House Bill 4664 pass? Do we have computers that need to be worked on? All right, everybody's computer is up and ready? All right, everybody's computer is up and ready. Seeing no objection, the question is, shall House Bill 4664 pass? All those in favor vote aye, opposed nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Take the record on that question. There are 41 voting yea, 16 voting nay, none voting present, and House Bill 4664, having received the required constitutional majority, is declared passed.